Day 156, Monday, May 15th. Numbers 9. Numbers 9 1-23 NKJV. Now the Lord spoke to Moses in the wilderness of Sinai, in the first month of the second year after they had come out of the land of Egypt, saying, Let the children of Israel keep the Passover at its appointed time. On the 14th day of this month, at twilight, you shall keep it at its appointed time. According to all its rites and ceremonies you shall keep it. So Moses told the children of Israel that they should keep the Passover. And they kept the Passover on the 14th day of the first month, at twilight, in the wilderness of Sinai, according to all that the Lord commanded Moses. So the children of Israel did. Now there were certain men who were defiled by a human corpse, so that they could not keep the Passover on that day. And they came before Moses and Aaron that day. And those men said to him, We became defiled by a human corpse. Why are we kept from presenting the offering of the Lord at its appointed time among the children of Israel? And Moses said to them, Stand still, that I may hear what the Lord will command concerning you. Then the Lord spoke to Moses, saying, Speak to the children of Israel, saying, If any one of you or your posterity is unclean because of a corpse, or is far away on a journey, he may still keep the Lord's Passover. On the 14th day of the second month, at twilight, they may keep it. They shall eat it with unleavened bread and bitter herbs. They shall leave none of it until morning, nor break one of its bones. According to all the ordinances of the Passover they shall keep it. But the man who is clean and is not on a journey, and ceases to keep the Passover, off from among his people, because he did not bring the offering of the Lord at its appointed time, that man shall bear his sin. And if a stranger dwells among you, and would keep the Lord's Passover, he must do so according to the rite of the Passover and according to its ceremony. You shall have one ordinance, both for the stranger and the native of the land. Now on the day that the tabernacle was raised up, the cloud covered the tabernacle, the tent of the testimony. From evening until morning it was above the tabernacle like the appearance of fire. So it was always, the cloud covered it by day, and the appearance of fire by night. Whenever the cloud was taken up from above the tabernacle, after that the children of Israel would journey, and in the place where the cloud settled, there the children of Israel would pitch their tents. At the command of the Lord the children of Israel would journey, and at the command of the Lord they would camp. As long as the cloud stayed above the tabernacle they remained encamped. Even when the cloud continued long, many days above the tabernacle, the children of Israel kept the charge of the Lord and did not journey. So it was, when the cloud was above the tabernacle a few days, according to the command of the Lord they would remain encamped, and according to the command of the Lord they would journey. So it was, when the cloud remained only from evening until morning. When the cloud was taken up in the morning, then they would journey, whether by day or by night. Whenever the cloud was taken up, they would journey. Whether it was 2 days, a month, or a year that the cloud remained above the tabernacle, the children of Israel would remain encamped and not journey. But when it was taken up, they would journey. At the command of the Lord they remained encamped, and at the command of the Lord they journeyed. They kept the charge of the Lord, at the command of the Lord by the hand of Moses. Daily Deep Dive. In Exodus 12 we received the original instructions for the Passover. Now, however, because some men had become defiled by coming into contact with dead bodies, thus becoming ceremonially unclean, they would have to miss the Passover. They appealed to Moses because they really didn't want to miss out entirely on this divinely commanded feast. Leviticus 23:5. God reveals himself in encounters like this one. He isn't the harsh, heavy-handed, unreasonable God some would make him out to be. This event gives us a glimpse at how compassionate and understanding he actually is in making it possible for us to follow him. He is giving and serving, not willing that any should perish, but that all mankind should ultimately be in his kingdom. Thus, he establishes the second Passover for those who, for reasons beyond their control, miss the first Passover. It isn't usually published on sacred calendars, so how can you tell when to keep the second Passover? There is an easy rule of thumb to use so as not to get confused. Just add 4 weeks and 2 days to the first Passover. For example, if the first Passover was on a Tuesday night, the second Passover will be on a Thursday night. Of course, we must never purposely skip the first Passover. God the Father literally gave up his Son Jesus Christ so that Christ could come to earth and die to take away our sin. Passover pictures this aspect of God's incredible plan of salvation. By God's good graces, some have been called to be a part of that plan at this time. Moses explained that those who disregarded the Passover would be cut off and bear their sin. It is the same for us today. To skip, or treat the Passover lightly, is to say to our Savior, "Thanks, but no thanks." We would remain in our sin. Verse 13. Let us never drift down such a dangerous spiritual path. And verse 6, we learn of 2 men who had become defiled due to touching/handling dead bodies and couldn't keep Passover due to being unclean. Here in Numbers, we aren't given any insight into why or how this happened. Commentaries make a connection to Leviticus 10 where Nadab and Abihu are killed by God for offering profane fire before God. In Leviticus 10:4, Moses calls 2 individuals, Mishael and Elzaphan, Aaron's cousins, to come and carry their bodies away. They follow Moses' instructions and would have become unclean in the process for 7 days. Compare Numbers 19:11. JFB commentary says that Jewish writers assert that these men were the persons who had carried out the dead bodies of Nadab and Abihu. Barnes' commentary also states that these certain men were probably Mishael and Elzaphan, who buried their cousins, Nadab and Abihu, within a week of this Passover. Try to place yourself in their shoes. You follow the instructions of Moses and now you can't keep the first memorial Passover, 1 year after coming out of Egypt? They are wise enough to bring their issue to Moses, who then goes to God about this unprecedented situation. Verse 10, God is very merciful and makes a way for these individuals to keep a second Passover a month later, 30 days later. This is the only festival that God allows a make-up date. What can we learn from this important example? First, God didn't lower his standard and allow unclean people to participate in this important Passover observance. Second, it shows us that God is reasonable and works with us where we are to find solutions to our problems. Third, it shows us how incredibly important Passover is that God would create a make-up day for his people. Verse 13, notice, everyone who possibly can is expected to take the first Passover. The second Passover is for only those rare times when someone was physically unable to keep the first Passover. God judges strongly the individual that could have taken the first Passover but chose not to.